This week, a listener is worried that being too honest about their past will scare dates off and cause even more regret. How much about your past should you share? And how soon? Also, what to do when you start having feelings for a friend with benefits. Welcome to the talking phase. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Talking Phase podcast. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Tom, and I am joined, as always, by my beautiful and intoxicating Pam. How are you, Pam?
By my beautiful,
Yes,
intoxicating
this is my
Pam.
Pam.
That is so romantic. I don't even. Now I don't. I'm flushed. I don't know what to say. Here I am thinking about the fact that I was going to tell you that I just got done celebrating Valentine's Day. That's what the single women do. All of the Pams and all of the people that you feel should be in these great healthy relationships, getting chocolate and flowers, and here we are having the time of our lives with other women because if you can't play in the big leagues, hang out with your friends. It's actually really busy. You can tell that men and probably women start to feel that like twinge right before Valentine's Day of, oh, I don't have anybody to spend this with. I need to get busy. So it's like all of a sudden you start getting a ton of likes, and I'm paying more attention to the dating apps, which every other episode I'll say I'm on them, I'm off them, I'm on them, which I feel like is going to be all I ever am, is on them and off them. But yeah, there's been a little bit more action over on the dating app. So I think we could probably do some dating app episodes in the not too distant future, just based on some of the stories that I will have stored up in the next month or so. But yeah, I'm talking to a couple of people. I've met a couple of people over the last week. Let's say, like, after our last episode, I had 2 separate dates last week. They both come with fairly entertaining stories, and no, they do not lead to second dates, but it's more entertaining if they lead to a second date. There's not really much to share.
It's true.
So yeah, we'll see what happens now that there's a little bit more action, so to speak, going on the dating apps. But in the meantime, I would just like to get ready for a date and not have to put on a winter coat. Like I'm super ready for spring and all of the joy and wonderful thing that comes with a new season and an end to the 20-degree nights. Because
wasn't it just yesterday that you were talking about how excited you were for fall and winter?
Never about winter, but yes,
okay.
about fall. By the end of summer and the humidity and the hundreds, I am ready for fall. But I always forget that if I want fall to get here, then I have to be prepared for winter. And this has been a really cold winter. So this Florida girl is not enjoying that at all. So how has it been in Utah? How's the weather? What's going on? What's going on there?
Well, so I flew to Phoenix earlier this week for just a day trip. I flew down in the morning, was home in the afternoon, which you can do from Salt Lake. It's only an hour and 20 minutes each way. So it's really a pretty simple flight. And when I left Utah, it was 4 degrees. And I spent the day in Phoenix at a golf event. It was just a Top Golf thing. And I think it was like 56 degrees. And then when I got back at 5:30, it was 7 degrees. So
whiplash.
Yeah. So it has been bitterly cold. I don't know how much it was with the wind chill. It was probably negative with the wind chill. But still not a lot of snow. So, I'm okay with cold. I just don't like
cold. Too cold to snow.
Yeah, I love that. But I will tell you, so tonight, when this thing drops, this will be old news, but tonight, Laura and I are going to the sound bath that I mentioned, I think, an episode or 2 ago.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Still not sure what that means. But I asked her today, I said, what do you wear to a sound bath? I literally don't even know what this is. And so she sent me a screenshot of the ticket that she has purchased, and you're laying on sand. And so they say to wear shorts and a tank top. Well, first off, I don't know what a tank top, because to me, that's called a wife beater. So I will guess I'll be wearing a t-shirt. It's going to be an interesting thing. Can't wait to tell you how it goes. But when this thing drops, I will tell you, a lot of stuff will have happened. Brian and I will have returned from our sales kickoff. Everyone in the company is flying into Indianapolis for a couple of days. And we will be back from that. I had to go to this Dallas event that's coming up here shortly. I will have just gotten back from that. Obviously, we're right in the middle of a whole bunch of planned travel, and there's a bunch of unplanned travel that's been popping up. So between Brian and his cohort and me, the three of us are all over this country. And
Woo!
right when this thing drops, Laura and I will have been back from Jackson Hole for a few days, and we're just about to leave for Wendover, Nevada to go see Quiet Riot
Oh
in
my
concert.
gosh. They
I
still
know.
play?
The
Quiet
80s called.
Riot.
They want their bands back.
I
Um,
give them back.
but then we're headed down to Vegas. So
For a
we were
small
supposed to,
wedding?
no, 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 we had tickets to see the Scorpions on my birthday, by the way. But they postponed. So
Oh.
darn it, we're gonna have to go to Vegas again in August, which by the way,
Oh, disappointing. How far is Vegas from you where you live?
this is about a 4.5 hour drive.
Oh,
So
that's
we'll drive it. I
amazing.
have a
That's so
5 hour rule. Anything over 5 hours, you fly. Anything under 5 hours, you drive.
That's
So
great though. But I love like in Florida, we were 4 hours from Orlando and Disney and all the parks. And I love 4 hours from Key West. I love that. Now we're 2 hours, 2 hours from the beach, 2 hours from the mountains, and anything else you need to get on an airplane. But that's
yeah,
great. Sounds like you guys have a lot of good times planned. That's
yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah. The only problem, of course, is we have to go back to Vegas in August. It's going to be like 147 billion degrees. But other than that,
No rubber shoes because they melt. It's so
yeah,
hot out there.
exactly. Anyway, now that I have bored everyone with my travel plans, I think it's time that we jump right into the show. And I think we're just going to do a couple emails, aren't we?
Yeah, today our main topic comes from an email.
All right.
So I am looking forward to finding out what you think about this.
All right.
You've got mail.
Now I have permission to read it. Okay. Pam and Tom, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. Thank you. Thank you very much. You have such a great way of talking about the tough stuff in dating and relationships, and I'm hoping you can help me with something that's been weighing on me. I've been dating again after a long break, and things are going pretty well, except for one thing. Whenever the conversation turns to past relationships, I freeze. I have so much regret over some of my choices, whether it's staying in toxic situations too long, hurting someone unintentionally, or just the sheer amount of bad decisions I've made. The people I'm dating always seem curious about my past, but I'm nervous about being honest. I don't want to overshare and scare them off, but I also don't want to lie or seem evasive. It feels like I'm carrying this weight and I don't know how to bring it up without it feeling awkward or making things weird. How do I talk about my past without letting regret take over? Should I even share that I have regrets, or is that a red flag? I'd love any advice you have on finding the balance between honesty and leaving the past where it belongs. Thank you so much for all that you do. I know I'm not the only one who feels less alone because of your podcast. Best, regretfully yours.
Hmm.
Oh, I love the way that she signed that. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of feelings when I read this email.
Yeah. Before we even get into it, I'm just wanting to say thank you, regretfully yours. I mean, I know I'm not the only one who feels less alone because of your podcast. That I don't know if there could have been a nicer thing to say to us.
No, that's a good point. Actually, when I was reading that, I was thinking to myself, every time I listen back to our podcast, I feel less alone.
Uh,
Just
that
listening to just listening to us talk about things, because we wind up sharing a lot of things about our past and our regrets. And, this topic, when I read it, I knew I wanted it to be our main topic because I even recently, not really going to talk about this date yet, but I went on a date with somebody who overshared um, on a first meet, and I'm going to be honest, it was a huge turnoff. So I understand the feelings that she's having and not wanting to have an outcome like this gentleman had on our first meet because it had been going really well. And I was enjoying the conversation. I was enjoying the company. We had both had a couple drinks. And when they say loose lips sink ships, they mean this guy. Because in the last hour of the date, he wound up telling me all about his ex girlfriend, whom he had recently broken up with, I guess I am going to talk about the date.
Let's hear
I
it.
was just like, well, there's never going to be a better topic to talk about this particular date. But he had dated this girl for 5 years and they had just recently broken up. And, that in itself is not a red flag to me. We've all broken up and dated or whatever. But he said that he is a serial dater and he dates as many days a week as he can get a date. He goes on a date. And he told me that when he has free time, I said, what do you do in your free time? He said, well, I don't like to watch TV. I don't listen to podcasts or music. I said, so what do you do? He said, well, I'm just on my phone. And it turned out that what he's doing is swiping for
Oh,
hours a night on like 6 or 7 different apps so that he can fill the time, so that he can keep himself busy, which, okay, again, that's all right. But then he confessed that the reason he's doing that is because he can't get over this girl
oh my
until he has a
gosh.
new girlfriend. And I'm just sitting there during the last 45 minutes of this date while he is just going on and on thinking, I have to go. Like, I have to go and I have to come up with a reason. He like even put his hand on my knee a couple times. I didn't mind it. Like, this guy had a real shot. Um, until that last 45 minutes with all the oversharing. And I wound up telling him he has a therapist, he told me, and
Keep
about
going.
she knows about what he's doing. And she said to him, you really need to take some time and work on yourself. And of course he shared that with me also. So I just told him that I agree with his therapist. And I said, you're a great guy. I really enjoyed getting to know you, but like, you have a lot of work to do. I said, you are really, really damaged. And I don't mean that in like you can't be fixed way, but like when somebody is that damaged, they should not be dating. They should be trying to work on themselves, undoing that damage. And so maybe this will help regretfully yours. I think that it's fine to share a little bit, especially in the beginning, and especially when somebody's really asking. But if they don't ask, you don't feel obligated to tell. I didn't ask about his ex. So if he had just kept that to himself, if he had waited till like month 2 or 3 and said, you came along at the right time. I was having some reservations about my last relationship, but now that I've met you, I think that I'm over her. I still would have been floored, but I probably wouldn't have run away with my hair on fire, which is exactly what I did after that date.
So I will tell you, what's interesting to me about this is that, she said, by the way, do we know it's a she?
Why do I always assume it?
I don't think we know. Anyway, I assume so too for some reason, but I don't see anything in here. I don't see anything, but let's say she. Just
Guys don't have as many regrets.
well, that might be part of it. But I guess my
Right.
question is, she says, the people I'm dating always seem curious about my past, but I'm nervous about being honest. And because I think it's natural, obviously, you go on a date with someone and you say, so how long have you been divorced? Or, but
Sure.
you don't have to say, oh, I've been divorced for 5 years. And oh, by the way, I cheated on my husband 67 times. You can answer questions without volunteering extra information as well. But I also have to sit there and I'm reading through this going, the regrets of her choices, whether it's staying in toxic situations too long. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of there. You made mistakes. Hurting someone unintentionally, again, unintentionally is the operative word,
Right.
or just the sheer amount of bad decisions I've made.
Sounds like my past.
Well, but the question is, and I don't know, again, I'm not trying to throw regretfully yours under the bus because I don't have enough information to do that. But I am curious, what are some of those bad decisions? Because we've all stayed in toxic situations too long, and we've all hurt people intentionally or unintentionally. Those aren't things to be ashamed of. It's this other bucket of bad decisions that I think are the crux of the problem here. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I guess I read the bad decisions as like kind of a combination of the choices, staying in toxic situations, hurting someone. I don't want to believe that the bad decisions are last weekend I smoked crack and then I robbed a grocery store. I feel like, I graduated from high school. My parents kicked me out of the house and then I had nowhere to live. And so I saw an ad in the newspaper that said Travel USA, see the world. And I went for an interview in an airport hotel, and they hired me on the spot. And the job, which I didn't know at the time, was to sell magazines door to door. And if you've
Woo.
ever had those kids that come to your door with the little card and they're like, I'm in a contest, I need to collect points by selling magazines. Actually, maybe they don't do it anymore because who the fuck buys magazines anymore? But
They do it.
that's what I did that for 3 years. I traveled around the country in a Suburban. It was a caravan. It was all kids between, let's say, 18 and 25. And I think we were all like probably not the best kids. We had all come out of like, I'll admit I just was not very good in my teens. I don't think I should have gotten kicked out of the house, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, like I always think to myself, like, is that a story that I would tell somebody? I guess I've told everybody that listens to the show now. So like if there's a guy listening that was thinking about asking me out, he's probably like, oh wow, that chick's a hussy. But I didn't sell anything but magazines. And I did that for years and I loved it. But is that a bad decision? Are we talking about just dating? Like, because Lordy, we've all made bad decisions in dating. I don't know the extent of what she's talking about, but I vote for not having to disclose very much in the beginning stages of getting to know somebody. Your past is very multifaceted. There are plenty of things you can talk about: your job, your kids, your family, growing up, whatever, school. There's a million things you can talk about without talking about your bad decisions.
Well, and this thing is, and not that I want to like say it this exact way, but if you've ever been deposed or been part of any sort of a court proceeding, your attorney will tell you, answer the question and shut up.
Right.
And you try to give yes or no answers, and because you get yourself in trouble, even if you don't mean to. You start volunteering shit, and then the other attorney goes, oh, wait a minute, well, let's go dig down there. Now, again, I don't want to treat a relationship or a date like a court case, but at the same time, you don't have to not embellish, that's not the right word. You don't have to, keep talking about stuff. If someone says, how long you been divorced? Oh, about a year. There you go. You don't need to say, and I'm still stuck on my ex-wife, and I have 17 children from 4 different baby mamas. And I mean, you don't have to elaborate. That's the word I was looking for. You don't have to elaborate on every detail, just about a year or 5 years or whatever the answer is. And how about you?
Hey, listen, if they have 17 children, I would like them to tell me that on the first date.
I understand.
Don't keep that to yourself.
If they ask, how many kids do you have? You say 17. But if they say, how long have you been divorced? You say 5 years. That's the answer to the question they asked. You don't have to go to the rest of it. That's my point.
Right. And I know for a fact that, if she's worried about giving up too much information, there's a better than average chance that these guys really aren't asking for the most serious things that have ever happened to you. They want to make sure you're single. They want to make sure that you can handle your business, you can pay your bills, that you're over your ex, that you have the freedom to date. I mean, I even asked this guy before the date, I said, do you have time to date? Because he works full time, he owns a car dealership. And he was just sounding like he didn't have time. Oh, he had an 11-year-old. I forgot to mention that. And that's on my absolute no list, but he was really nice. And he was like, I have nothing but time. He said, my parents live in town. My son can spend weekends with them. I can travel. He really sold me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have met somebody with an 11-year-old. So ironically, after the date, I told him, that we could be friends, but that I wasn't interested in seeing him again. And I left, and he texted me multiple times to see if I wanted to get together and go out again, because obviously he was a little on the dense side. He didn't understand, you're damaged, you need to get help. I don't want to be more than friends with you. So he asked me out a couple more times, and I just kind of left him on red after the second or third text. I went out to dinner with 10 friends of mine a few nights after the date. And we were comparing dating stories, and we were comparing dating app stories and who we're talking to. And I told the story about what happened with this guy, and I mentioned his name. And 3 of the girls at the table were all having conversations with him. and broke out their phones, and we compared the conversations, which were basically the same. Like, I have lots of free time. I have a good job. I have lots of money. I just want to treat a woman like a princess. Like, we should have all known like that this guy was really selling himself too hard. And he was pretty nerdy. But after we talked about, the fact that this had happened to me and that they said they were not going to date him. I did tell the story before I knew they were talking to him. So a lot of them unmatched. And so I sent him a text and I told him exactly what happened at that dinner. And he said, well, I told you I had plenty of time to date. And I just
I've
said,
got a lot more now because your 10
right,
friends all unmatched.
right. And I said, listen, I said, the women that I'm friends with do not want to date somebody who is only dating to try to get over their ex. I mean,
Yeah.
just I no healthy individual is looking for that. And so when you're in a situation where you're on a date with somebody and you've had a couple drinks and your lips are loose and you're like, oh, I'm just going to he just kept saying, I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to tell the story. I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to tell the story. And at that point, when somebody says, I know I shouldn't, you're like, well, hell, I probably want to hear that before I decide if I want to go out with you again. But you probably shouldn't tell the story. Like, if it's something you're not proud of or you're trying to get over and you really want something new, you need to spare your future dates the heaviness of that. And the girl was dying. So let me just put the cherry on the Sunday
God.
there was that they broke up. She broke up with him after 5 years. And he just kept saying, she has an expiration date. So I don't really understand why it didn't work out.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it was just a terrible story. And to me, when I read this email, I have so much regret over some of my choices, staying in toxic situations too long, hurting someone unintentionally, or bad decisions. Like, that just literally brought me right back to Saturday night.
Yeah.
And just all of the things Lloyd said that night.
So the question they asked, or the what they'd hoped, they said, any advice you have on finding the balance between honesty and leaving the past where it belongs? So I've got two pieces of advice.
Okay.
The first one is, think about everything in your past. Maybe write a list of all the stuff that you're ashamed of or that you're afraid of sharing. Because what she said earlier is that she freezes up. So I'm saying be prepared. The first thing is, let's be prepared so that you don't have to freeze up. So the first thing is, write a list of everything that you're ashamed of or that you're afraid of oversharing. And then I want you to think about that and which of those things would be a deal breaker for you. I mean, if you were dating a guy and he had the same list, would you walk away from him? And which of those things would be a deal breaker for you? That's the first thing, so that you're prepared for that. The second thing is, write down what you're willing to share, what you think you should share about those things, and then practice it. And I know it's not, again, I'm not saying practice it like write a script, but if they ask, again, well, how long have you been divorced? 5 years. And by the way, always end your answer with a question back.
Yes, even in the talking phase.
Absolutely. Always. And by the way, that's how you do it in sales. That's how you do it in life. And that shows interest, but it also prevents you from saying something stupid. So how long have you been divorced? 5 years. How about you? That's great. How many kids do you have? I have 3 children. How about you? I mean, and if you practice that and you get comfortable doing it that way, then you're not going to bring up those 5 things that you're so ashamed of you don't want to bring up, but they until later. That's the thing. Be prepared. That's my advice to you. Pam, what do you think?
No, well, that's great advice. I don't think many of us really think about how we're going to answer questions, even if we've gotten that question 10 or 20 times. And I certainly don't think many of us practice for a first date. I've never practiced for a first date. I have realized, though, that I can have 2 drinks and still control what comes out of my mouth. If you can't control what you're going to share, if you're drinking, don't drink on a first date.
Great
Don't drink on
advice.
a second date. Keep your wits about you, because that's when he lost it. He said to me, I can't handle my liquor. I wouldn't have told you this if I wasn't drinking. I hope this isn't going to work against me. But it's too late, because all of this information is out. And it's unfortunate, because he probably is a nice guy. I mean, he wasn't a guy for me anyway. We weren't a good match. He doesn't watch TV. It's important. It's important to have things in common. Like, I fill my anytime voids I have by watching a show that I really enjoy. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people do that. It can be a show, it can be a podcast, it can be music. When somebody says they don't like TV or music, that's like a huge red flag.
Yeah, they're
Um,
probably in Al-Qaeda at that point.
well, no, they're just obsessed with dating apps.
Right.
Everybody, chasing the dragon. It's like looking for your next high, looking for your next date, looking for the next person who's going to distract you from the person who broke your heart or wasn't interested in you. So keep your wits about you. And when you're on a date, you know, I agree with Tom. If somebody asks a question, answer the question. If you want to elaborate, it's okay to elaborate a little bit. If somebody says to me, "How many kids do you have?" I'll say, "Yeah, I have 2 kids. My son is 21. He's graduating from NC State. My daughter's 30. She's my best friend." I'm trying to, get a conversation going. I'm trying to share enough so that they'll share more. But I don't feel a need to share my baggage. And anybody who's been on a first date with me knows that I believe in keeping it really, really positive. You're not going to hear about my drama. And that doesn't mean I don't have any. It just means that it's not going to affect the person I'm on the date with. I'm healed from my drama. I don't need to talk about it on a regular basis anymore.
Exactly.
So
Just yesterday, I spent 3.5 hours with my boss, helping him prepare for his board meeting presentation. Um, and he has to present for like 30 minutes about everything that happened the prior quarter. Um, and it's supposed to be the good and the bad. But obviously, you're trying to spin it to the good. So you mention the bad, you focus on the good. And the reason I helped him prepare, he was all prepared from a data standpoint, but he wanted to present it to me, and I played the part of our chairman and asked questions, and he had to respond to my questions. And so it's really about preparing and being prepared with the answers so that you don't say something stupid. It's not about scripting yourself. It's like it's limiting yourself. It's making sure you say what you want to say and not say what you don't want to say.
right.
And I think it's great advice to not be drunk when you're doing it.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah. By the way, don't smoke crack when you're doing it either.
Yeah, and definitely don't rob a store. That was one of my that actually was a story from my past, but I didn't do it. It was somebody
Oh,
I knew
I was
who
going to
did it.
say, wow, Pam, you're really sharing now. Are
No,
you
I
drinking?
really cleaned up my accents, but I've made it just goes to show that if I know somebody who did that, I've made a lot of bad decisions. But you know what? That's
Awesome.
my axe to bear. I'm a better person for those bad
Absolutely.
decisions.
So what do you think? You think anything else we want to say to what'd she say? What'd she sign it? Regretfully yours?
No, I think that this was very black and white for us. Just work on it, practice, do better, don't drink.
Yeah.
They're
And
gonna
don't,
love
and
you
by the
for
way,
today.
if you've got regrets from your past, don't dig the hole any deeper. Stop digging. That's the
Right.
first
Wait till he's in love with you. If you guys are like head over heels in love and you're really oversharing at that point, I feel like they're kind of in it for the long haul. There's a
step.
time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
The
Agreed.
beginning is not the time or the place.
Well,
All right.
before we get to the next one, want to take just a minute, as we do every week. And this is the point where I get to beg all of our listeners to rate and review the show on whatever app you're using to hear our voices and maybe see our beautiful faces, depending on which app. Do a quick rating and review. That really helps get the word out. Our family is growing. Well, that sounds bad. The Talking Face family is growing. Um, we got some great comments and great interactions this week. It's great to hear from you guys. We love it. Not just because it gives us great content, but we really do love it, especially Pam, because she reads them all. Anyway, be sure to rate and review. That's all I can ask. I'm going to ask more later, but right now, that's all I can ask before we get into the next one. So we ready for the next one, Pam?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
You've got mail.
More mail. And listen, as far as the emails go, we get a lot of emails with people asking us to do certain topics, but it's never more fun to do a topic than when it comes in the form of an email asking advice, because it really gives us an opportunity to come up with something that we wouldn't have thought of ourselves. Like that topic was not something I would have ever come up with for the show. So I appreciate her, even if she has regrets. All right, moving on. Hey, Pam and Tom, I've been listening to your podcast religiously.
Woohoo.
I really like that. And I love how you always keep it real while giving such thoughtful advice. Do you think that maybe this person is scared of what we might say?
I
I
would
love how
be.
you keep it real, thoughtful. I'm hoping you can help me out with a situation that's been keeping me up at night. Well, Okay. I've been in a friends with benefit situation with this guy for the past year. In the beginning, it was exactly what I wanted: low pressure, fun, and easy. But over time, I've started to develop real feelings for him. I've caught
Mhm.
myself imagining what it would be like if we were more than just benefits. And
Ah,
now I can't shake the idea of wanting something more serious with him. The problem is I'm terrified to bring it up. I don't want to ruin what we have, but I also feel like I'm lying to myself by pretending I'm still okay with keeping it casual. What if I tell him how I feel and he decides he doesn't want this anymore? I'd be heartbroken to lose him completely. How do I figure out the best way to approach this without scaring him off? Is there even a way to handle this without risking everything? I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to navigate this tricky situation. Thanks so much. Best, I want more than benefits. Uh, what's
wow.
with all these last two emails are just full of questions that we are going to guess our way through because we don't know him.
Yeah.
So,
Wait a minute. We know this is a woman, right?
oh my gosh, you know what? It doesn't say this is a woman.
Yeah. Well, it says, "What if I tell him how I feel?" So I'm
Oh,
assuming it's not a gay couple. So we'll say it's a woman writing this email.
but if it's a gay couple, that's okay too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're gonna say she and her and all that. So if anybody's offended, we apologize. Um, so here are my thoughts. And by the way, guys, for those who haven't ever heard this, we actually do write. I put together a little show outline, and generally, what I do is I'll read through this stuff, or we'll figure out the topic, and I'll just write down a few bullets of things that I think are important to talk about. And Pam usually just wings it. I don't know what the hell happened. Right as we got on the show, I'm like, "Oh shit, where are my notes?" And I literally don't have a single note. So I'm good. This is me winging it this week.
It's
Which
probably for
is
the best.
yeah, maybe for the best. But
We'll
I will
see.
tell you my thoughts. First off, I've never been in a friends with benefits situation ever. So I have literally zero experience with this. So, but I have been part of a religion. So the fact that she listens religiously is pretty exciting. So she's part of the Thinking Things family cult. Um, but the only thing that I thought of as you were reading that email, Pam, is I, kind of the same feeling that I had just in the last couple of months as Laura and I were transitioning from being just friends, not friends with benefits, but just friends to more than that. And remember, I talked about it here on the show. I was terrified to lose that friendship if we moved forward with something more than a friendship. So I know it's not exactly the same, but it's, I guess,
Similar.
what does Brian always say? Same church, different pew.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what I
very
say.
it's very similar.
Yeah. And so here are my, again, related but not exactly on the right page thoughts. I started to develop real feelings for Laura, and I had to decide, were those feelings strong enough, and did I believe she felt the same thing for me to risk it? And by the way, it's still a risk. I mean, here we are 2 months into this. I'm having a blast. Laura and I are going out all the time. We have plans. We're having a great time together. If things don't work out, and obviously right now I don't see why they wouldn't, but they haven't for the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, they haven't for the last 30 years. Um, every relationship I've been in has ended. And as what is his name? Tommy said on Landman, all relationships end badly until the last one.
God, that was such a great line on that
It
show.
really was. That was a great line. But so I guess my advice, I mean, she's asking, right? How do I
Yes.
figure the best way to approach this without scaring him off? You just have to decide, because I hate to say it this way, but if you're just hanging out for the sex, but you want more, you got to get more. That's what I think. Yeah.
It is my turn. Okay, so unlike Tom, I've had multiple friends with benefit situations. I don't think you normally go into those situations intending on a friends with benefit situation. I think you meet somebody, you hit it off. Um, it gets to that level, and I don't know about most people, but as a woman, when it gets to the level of intimacy, I am always hoping that there's a possibility it can become a relationship and become more than just friends with benefits. But with that said, sometimes you're in that situation and you realize that that person is not your person. You don't have enough in common. There's a big age disparity that you don't like. There's multiple reasons that it's not going to work long term. But as it seems, this person, I forgot her name, as it seems, I want more than benefits has discovered, it's really hard to spend. I've not had a friends with benefits situation for a year. I've had it for a few months, give or take. And at that point, I either realize that it's not going to turn into anything more and I end it, or they end it. I mean, honestly, most guys aren't going to walk away from friends with benefits unless they meet somebody that they want a relationship with and they don't want to cheat. Um, I've I can't say that I've ever been in that relationship and thought to myself, I want more than this. And I need to tell him I want more than this. Like, you see that in movies. My God, I think there's 2 movies. One with I can see him. Cute. Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, who are now married, are in a movie. It might be even called Friends with Benefits. I can't remember. But like, it's a big topic where couples that just seem to rotate around each other, but they're not serious. But when they see each other, they hook up. One falls in love, or they're both in love, but the other one doesn't know it yet. And so, there's that panic that sets in. Am I going to lose that person? Yeah, I've not ever slept with somebody for a year that I wasn't in a relationship with. So if you tell him how you feel and he decides he doesn't want this anymore, I'm not sure you've really lost anything, because if he doesn't want your relationship to be more than what it is, and you are at a point in your life where you're ready for more, I think that you probably need to know so that you can find that with somebody else if it's not him. If he's never going to settle down, or if, like me, he's known from the beginning that you guys aren't a good match, but he really enjoys your company in the now, but not in the future. That's really something that you need to find out. I don't know how old you are, but to me, at a year in, if it hasn't evolved, I'd say it's probably not going to, but at the very least, if you have a conversation, an honest and open conversation about how you're feeling, and he just says, look, I'm not feeling that way. That's not what I want. I feel terrible that you'll be heartbroken if you lose him completely. And maybe you won't. Maybe without the benefits, you guys will still be friends. If you're going to miss the sex that much, and you are absolutely okay with it staying just the way it is, then don't say anything. But like, it sounds to me like you are at a point where you need to know that this can go somewhere, and you can't find that out without risking losing it. There's no risk, no reward.
Right. And I'll throw this other thing out there. Unless you talk to him about it, he may be feeling the same thing, and we might get an email from him next week, saying that he's seeing this really awesome chick that friends with benefits, but he likes her more than that. I mean, you have no idea, unless you talk to him. I think you owe it to yourself to find out. That's what I'm saying.
You could let him listen to this podcast.
There you go. Please do that.
I mean, you could just have it on. You don't even have to tell him, I wrote into this podcast. You could just be in the car together, put it on, let it be quiet, listen to the podcast. You could even say, I listen to this from time to time, and let him hear the situation. There is a possibility he's going to know that you wrote this letter because it's your relationship. But there's another possibility that he's just going to hear it, and it's going to make him think, wow, what is this? Are we more than friends with benefits? Because maybe you are. Maybe, unless he's dating other people and you're dating other people, maybe you're already in a relationship and you don't even know it. Maybe you guys are just seeing each other. Maybe this is exactly what you want. Because in the movies, it always ends with the couple together.
Of
and
course.
you know that life is just like the movies.
Yes. Every time.
It's a conundrum. 20 years ago, you weren't really ever getting into a friends with benefit situation. We just didn't do that. Gen X doesn't do that. We just, I was talking to a friend today, and she's much more open to, just hanging out, having a good time, things like that. And I said, at 57, I can't do that anymore. Like, if I do not have an emotional attachment to the person, or at least think there's a possibility that I could have a relationship with them, there's absolutely no chance that we end up in bed. I just don't have the desire for just sex. And it made me realize that I don't know whether it's age. I don't know whether it's just your libido gets to be less as you get older. But, in my last relationship, I really enjoyed sex, but I don't need to have it all the time. And so for me, it's a no-brainer. If I have to choose between a conversation with a guy that I'm sleeping with where I tell him I'm ready for this to be more. I just want to see if you're on the same page. Are you sleeping with other people? Are we dating other people? Or do you want to see where this goes?
Mhm.
Like, this is very black and white for me. You said, how do I figure out the best way to approach this without scaring him off? I don't know the guy, but if he can be scared off by this conversation, I don't know that you're really losing out on anything other than sex. And you can probably get that from other people without investing a year.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I just thought of something else. Since I didn't have this in my notes, do you remember what was it? Probably a couple of months ago now, when Laura and I were just barely starting, and I wasn't sure where it was going, and that lady that I kind of work with wanted to set me up with her mom. Do you remember that?
Right. I
Uh,
do remember. That's what got you guys together.
yeah,
That's when
well,
you
it
had
helped
the
us
talk.
kind of DTR. Well, I talked to that lady just an hour ago. Um, and she asked me how things are going. I saw her a couple of weeks ago and we didn't have a chance to talk. We were at a different event, but so we were on the phone today, and I told her things are going great, and she goes, well, I'm glad that you didn't go out with my mom then.
No kidding.
But anyway, we were talking about how it helped move the relationship forward, or at least define that relationship with Laura. And so I'm wondering if our friend here wants more than benefits. What is it? I want more than benefits. Um, I wonder if you can manufacture someone asking you out and saying, or maybe even just say, how would you feel if I mean, I've met someone, or if I did, I don't want you to lie to someone. I'm not.
I love to manufacture, though. I was just going to say, we want you to lie,
Yeah,
lie to
I
him.
feel bad about even saying that. But I mean, if you were to maybe pose it as a hypothetical, what if I met someone and obviously that would end I'm going to be loyal to them. I'm not going to keep fucking you. So how would you feel about that? Would that hurt your feelings? Maybe that's how you could open it. I don't know. Again, I've never been in this situation. That's a weird one.
And
But,
in the movies, and I remembered the name of the movie. It's called No Strings Attached.
oh,
And
okay.
and you should watch this movie. It's adorable. And it's basically this email. But you know, at the end of the day, you want a relationship, and if it's not with him, it'll be with somebody else. I think maybe.
Yep.
Don't go by my life, but like, yeah, I just feel like you're past the point of no return at this point. So
I agree.
bite the bullet, have the conversation. That's our advice on this one. You have anything else, Tom?
No, I wish I did.
Oh, well, he probably had a slew of notes on this topic. Yeah.
I did actually. I
Oh,
had a ton, but I like my last one more because again, because of what that lady, her name's Randy, because Randy tried to set me up with her mom, and I was able to use that. Not that I intended to use it, but because I used it and it helped. Maybe you could hypothetically say, "Hey, friends with benefit, or friend with benefits." Um, what would happen if I were to meet somebody else? How would you feel about that? And maybe that could open up the conversation. I
no.
think that's my favorite thing that I said, and I hadn't even written that in my notes. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you wing it.
When I say that I learn more about myself from the show than I do in my 1 hour of therapy a month that I still go to, it's because I don't know what I'm going to say before I say it. And I wind up saying things that I tell myself, I'm not going to say that on the show. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about that date, but like, I feel like just being open and honest is going to be the best way for her to talk to him. And for me, it really, when I listen to these episodes back, I know more and more what I'm doing with my life, even though sometimes it may not seem like that. And with that, I will thank you guys for your emails. We do our best to help. Obviously, we're not professionals, but please continue to send us your requests for advice. We will let you know when we're going to read them on the show. If you have any ideas for topics or anything you want to share, and if you want to leave comments for the people that write this email, I've noticed we've gotten many comments today on YouTube directly for the people who wrote the email on today's episode that came out. So we read all of those comments, as do the people who wrote in those emails. So please leave us comments on YouTube or Spotify, and send them in talkingphase@gmail.com. Again, just like the show, it's talkingphase@gmail.com. We'll love hearing from you. I promise to read them all and respond to all of the ones that are going to be on the show.
That's awesome. Pam, this has been fun. Thanks everybody out there for listening. We love to see our Talking Phase family growing as it does every single week. We get more comments, we get more emails, and it's so much fun. So the way that you can help us grow this is to share it with your friends and family, especially if you're the one who wrote the email. Feel free to, play this for your loved ones and say, what do you think? And then, but also rating and reviewing, because the ratings and reviews is what makes the podcast platforms actually share it with more people. That's the single most effective thing you can do. We do this every single Friday, whether you like it or not. So hopefully you do. We also have social media, TikTok, which is still alive, Facebook and Instagram. So until next Friday, this is Pam and Tom signing off.
Have a great day. Have a great week. Stay warm out there, you guys.